So, welcome everybody, those who are joining us remotely and those who are here with us for our second roundtable of the semester, starring Dr. Duenas, who is of the biology department.
Yes.
Okay, and she's going to talk to us today and share with us about her research. So thank you so very much for being with us. We're really excited.
Yeah, no problem. Here, you guys got a clap for the YouTube video. So you can tell I'm setting a timer because I haven't practiced this. I'm actually not talking about my research at all. I'm talking about something that I don't really get a lot of opportunities to talk about that is research adjacent, but I care a lot about it. So the prompt was talk about something you're passionate about. And then I talked to Rachel and Maggie, who were in my lab, and I was like, would you guys want to hear about the science outreach and science policy stuff that I did? And they said yes. I'm a bit of an unusual person, I guess is how you will word it, and I think that probably this presentation will demonstrate that to you. I've never really found a thing that fit me perfectly, so I just made them up as I went along. I just took this video like 15 minutes ago of the bumblebee colony I have downstairs. So if you want to see live bumblebees in a colony, I can take you down there. Okay, that's me. So, let me take you back in time to the beginning of my passion for science. So, I made a timeline of my life, and so we're going to go from the beginning, what got me really interested in science and teaching science, some weird stuff I did in grad school, some weird stuff I did as a postdoc, and then weird and not so weird stuff I do as a professor. So, it all started at a tiny little Catholic school in Covington, Kentucky called Covington Latin School. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life through most of high school until I took a biology class from this guy, Dennis Whitehead, in my sophomore year of high school. And then I just fell in love with biology. He was a very performative teacher, and so he was also the director of the drama club, which I was also in because I love attention. So he was kind of like a mixture of my love of theater and biology, and he had this great way of mixing both of them. And then what really hooked me was in our senior biology class, we read The Origin of Species. This copy actually, it's in my office, and I still have notes in it from when I took this class at 16. They're really dumb. I didn't know anything then. But we read this book, or at least I tried to. It didn't make a lot of sense to me, but I loved discussing it with him, and so I was like, I'm going to be a biologist. Those are just some pictures of me being cool at junior classical league because I took 4 years of Latin. That's how cool I am. So I went on to an undergraduate degree at Mount St. Joseph University in Cincinnati, right across the river. And that's where I figured out what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I knew I was interested in biology, but I didn't know what about it. Until I met this dude. This is Gene Kritsky. He's a biology professor there. And he's an entomologist. And there was one day when I was a sophomore, we had a biology student lounge, and I was taking a nap in there. And he came in and he woke me up and was like, hey, you're not doing anything, you want to catch some bugs? I was like, yeah, I want to catch bugs, okay. And it was like, I was hooked from then on. I was like, bugs, biology, this is my jam. But I also, in undergrad, did some co-op experiences at a cancer research lab and then at a human genetics lab. And so I was like, I like bugs and I like research. And then I also went on a bunch of immersion courses to Egypt and the Galapagos. And we took a marine biology trip to the Florida Keys. I was like, I like travel, bugs, genetics. I'll do those 3 for grad school. But the thing that made me really, really passionate about teaching was something that happened while I was still in undergrad. It happened the summer between my junior and my senior year. So this is where I grew up, in northern Kentucky. I was a commuter, so I took a ferry right there every day to school, in college. And then this place opened. Has anybody heard of the Creation Museum before? I know you have because you've heard me talk about it before. Let me tell you a little bit about the Creation Museum. This is it. It was built by a billionaire named Ken Ham, who's from Australia, and he thought Kentucky would be the perfect place to preach about how evolution was a lie created by the devil, trying to convince people to sin. It's a beautiful facility. Let me just show you a few of the exhibits that are in here. I didn't take any pictures. I won't pay admission to go in here. Here's how they explain some evolutionary evidence that, as a scientist and growing up in Catholic high school and Catholic college, I learned was true. They explained dinosaurs and humans living together at the same time because the Earth is only 5,000 years old. They consider the Bible a scientific text and take it extremely literally. So, the Earth is only 5,000 years old, which means people and dinosaurs existed at the same time. Why didn't dinosaurs just eat all the people? Well, silly, they were all vegetarians. So every animal was a vegetarian before Eve ate the apple. And then she created carnivores. Here's a dinosaur eating a pineapple. See? Everyone was a vegetarian before original sin. And they have all these exhibits explaining how the Bible is a scientific piece of work. But what it ends with, after they convince you of this, it ends in the culture and crisis room. Here's Darwin and the study of evolution, millions of years, breaking down a Christian church and destroying it with all of its sin and evil. Today, man decides truth. And then they have this and they say, if you believe in evolution, and evolution has created all these problems in society. Evolution is the reason we have gay marriage. Evolution is the reason why people do stem cell research. Evolution caused the Columbine massacre. All the problems in the world can be explained by Charles Darwin's theories on natural selection. And this made me pissed. I learned all about evolution and decided I wanted to become an evolutionary biologist at a Catholic high school and a Catholic college. And I had learned that the Catholic Church has said, hey, evolution is real and it doesn't contradict our faith for a long time, like 70 years. So I was mad, and so I helped organize a protest outside the Creation Museum the day it happened. There was a mix of people across all different faiths. It's like, let's get all these religious leaders who say evolution is scientific fact and it doesn't contradict our faith. So we had people from many different Christian denominations, other religions that were speaking, and there was a pretty good turnout. Now, I can't find my pictures of it that I took that day, but I do have this video of me at the rally. Okay, wait. There's me with my emo hair in college. There we go. That's me. This video is from a major motion picture that was made about a year later called No Intelligence Allowed. Didn't know it was being filmed until a friend went to see the movie and said, dude, I think I saw you in the movie. science and religion. You can have evolution, or you can have religion. You can't have both. That's basically the premise of this entire movie. And so, if you agree with the point in the early part of the movie that you cannot have religion and evolution at the same time, then they're like, what would a world look like without religion? And so, in the same movie where there's clips of me at a protest, there's also this. Oh, I dropped my phone.
Will eradicating religion really lead to a modern utopia? Let me try to imagine that, and let's let history be our guide.
So, there were clips of me as the opposite side in the same movie, where they're also saying Nazis agree with me. I think I can tell you I was not a fan of that depiction. The guy who's at the beginning of that clip, that's P.Z. Myers. He's a very famous evolutionary biologist. They interviewed Rutger Dawkins and P.Z. Myers for this. They're atheists, and so they have very strong views on religion. But nowhere did they interview an evolutionary biologist of faith, and so they present a very one-sided view of this. Either an evolutionary biology atheist, or you accept the truth that's in the Bible. Which I knew wasn't true from everything I learned. And so this whole experience taught me that science education is really, really important. I think the reason I'm wearing a mask right now can tell you enough that science education is really, really important. But I'll talk about how I turned this anger and passion into action later on. So let's talk about when I went to graduate school. Okay. I went to graduate school at the University of Illinois in the entomology department, and I did my master's and my PhD there. This is the quad. It's very beautiful. There are 40,000 students there. So going from a school of less than 2,000 to a school of 40,000 was a big shift for me. That's me from my first week of grad school with a bug. And the person that influenced me the most about how to approach science education and science outreach with the general public is May Berenbaum. This is her with President Obama. He awarded her the National Medal of Science in, I can't remember the year, but she was very excited about it. And I was her teaching assistant for 4 years, and then I also helped her run a museum called the Pollinatarium, which is a museum all about pollination. The other thing that she is famous for, and is the reason she probably got a National Medal of Science, is for her science education with the public. Since 1984, she's been hosting the Insect Fear Film Festival at Illinois. And as the president of the Graduate Student Club, I helped organize this every year that I was there for graduate school. The year that I was running everything, we did a special, it was the 30th anniversary, so we did a special X-Files themed one. We got 2,400 people to show up, and then I got to meet the creator of the X-Files and the writer who wrote the X-Files episode about May Berenbaum. So there's a character in an X-Files episode based on her. And this is where I really fell in love with teaching kids. What we have, this is where everyone watches the movies, and they're always terrible, terrible B horror movies, or something special like the X-Files, which is campy but not horrible. Don't you dare say it's horrible. So we watch campy horror movies that are about insects or crustaceans or other arthropods, and then in the front of the foyer of this auditorium in Illinois, we have a bug zoo, and so we let kids touch them. So basically, it's a show where it's a festival where we show scary movies, but the point is to make people less afraid of insects. And it's always really exciting to see a kid hold a bug for the first time, or to see them learn something new about bugs.
Dr. Jimenez,
Huh?
while you're taking a breather, could I ask you a question?
Oh, sure, yeah.
So you've probably been inundated this, but do you know that we at St. Vincent have a connection to Covington?
I do. Yes,
Okay.
I do know that. Yeah. I figured that out because Bishop Foy sends a lot of people to the seminary, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I met somebody. I figured that out because I met my sisters. Somebody who went to high school with my sister in the seminary.
Yes, and we were the pastors of 2 parishes in Covington City for 130 years.
Really?
And we founded a place called Monte Cassino there.
Oh, where's that? In Covington?
Yeah, it's like a park. It's outside of the. It was a vineyard, but anyhow.
Oh,
So,
nice.
yeah,
I didn't know that.
We left Covington in 1980. Our St. Vincent monks. So
Oh, I didn't know that.
I just wanted to share that.
Oh, thank you. That's cool. Oh, right. National Pollinator Week. So, this was something that was already going on, I think in 2000, I can't remember the year, but it was already a event that had been going on, and then I took over. And this is where I got to experiment with lots of different types of outreach with the public. I got a really good graphic designer in the entomology department named Chip. He designed this artwork for National Pollinator Week. And we did lots of really fun things. I hosted a bar trivia night that was all about pollinators. We had a local band come and they made up songs. Over the years I asked them to come back and they wrote songs about bees to sing for Pollinator Week. We had a very fancy adult dinner at a wine bar where every item was labeled on the menu if it had been pollinated. The most popular things every year were a photography workshop by Alex Wild, who's now the curator of the entomology collections at University of Texas, and then a guided nature walk by this guy, Dave Monk, who calls himself the prairie monk, even though he's not a real monk. He's just an old guy who knows everything about the prairie. And then my favorite thing that I think I organized for this was labeling every item in one of the local grocery stores with whether or not it was pollinated and what animal pollinated it. It took a lot of work, but I think it was probably the most effective outreach event I've ever organized because people just come, everyone goes to the grocery store. Maybe not this one, it was a food co-op, so it's like, a little hippie granola. So not everybody goes there, but if you bought something, you learned if it was pollinated. It took a lot of time. See, I even went so far as to see if it just increased the yield, but didn't need pollination. And then I also had this poster that we designed with all the little organisms. This is the pollinatarium. That's the museum. That's all about pollination. Okay. And then that's where I came up with my alter ego that I use for outreach and also for roller derby. So in 2010, I had just gotten back from doing a month-long evolution workshop in the Czech Republic. And one of my friends in the grad program was like, hey, they just started a roller derby league here. You should come and we should try it out. And that was in 2010 and I have been playing ever since, so it will be my 11-year anniversary next year. And somebody helped me come up with my roller derby name because I just would never stop talking about pollinators. So that's when one of my friends named me Pollinator. And then, so that's the persona I use when I play roller derby, but then I decided to turn that into a character that I use for outreach. So, the pollinator costume has evolved over the years. It looks very different now, but I had like a honeycomb skirt and some leggings, and pollinator helped a lot with advertising. So we always had a farmer's market booth too for National Pollinator Week, and we do it the whole month of June. And we answer lots of questions. That was also one thing I really liked doing because it helped me dispel a a lot of myths about pollinators, like Monsanto's killing all the bees. No, maybe a little, but it's not just Monsanto's fault. A lot of people don't know that honeybees are not native to the United States. They were brought over in the 1700s by European colonists. And so it was fun to teach people about that. And the other one that people always ask, if I buy bee pollen, will it cure my allergies? The answer is no, because if you're allergic to plants, you're probably allergic to wind-pollinated plants, not ones that bees collect pollen from. That was probably the most common question I got. And that's a new picture. That's from last year, because now I play for Steel City Roller Derby in Pittsburgh. But, and then I did some more experimental stuff for outreach. I met a music composition student who was a PhD student who had written a bunch of music that was inspired by insects, and he wanted an entomologist to bring live animals to his performance. So I brought live bees, live crickets, and I amplified their sounds. And then I wrote some poetry, and I read that at this art gallery opening. And then we did this celebration of John Cage, famous artist, musician, and I was invited again. And so in the University of Illinois Art Gallery, I made up like Dadaist poetry by reading out of my insect physiology textbook, and then I read it into a distortion mic so it like messed with my voice, and then I just kind of floated around and pretended to be a bee for like an hour. So, something a little kooky. So, those are the grad school years and the coming into being of pollinator. Now let's go into my postdoc years. So after I finished at University of Illinois, I got a job as a postdoctoral scholar with my friend and colleague Paulus Woodard. There's us eating ice cream and laughing. She's a professor at UC Riverside, and I had known her from graduate school, and so she hired me when I graduated. This is the UC Riverside campus. Those are the San Bernardino Mountains. And while I was there, I got a grant from the United States Department of Agriculture to fund a research project looking at the effects of pesticide exposure, poor nutrition, climate change on bees in the Sierra Nevada. And so for 4 months I lived in Yosemite National Park doing research up there. And I traveled all over the place. There was a year when I was a postdoc, I traveled to 4 different countries and flew 13 different times within a year. I was on a plane every month. I can't even, oh God, that makes me so tired just thinking about it now. But I had lots of fun. And this is kind of when I took my science outreach big time to a national level. So as a postdoc, I was also awarded a fellowship with the Entomological Society of America to do science policy work with them. So for 2 years, I was a science policy fellow, and so we would travel to Washington, D.C. and meet with legislators, Senate and Congress, and talk about funding for science. It was a really eye-opening experience. I never met a senator or congressman in person, except for him. Does anybody know who that is? Who is it, Rachel?
Bernie Sanders.
Bernie Sanders, and he was sitting on a park bench when we finished our Hill meetings for the day. But I, of course, had to tell him all about my bees, and then he told me he was afraid of bees, and it kind of made me cry a little on the inside, but that's okay. These are pictures. So I actually continued doing this once I started at St. Vincent. So because I was now in Pennsylvania, instead of meeting with California legislators' offices, I met with Pennsylvania. So I got to meet with Bob Casey's office and then Pat Toomey's office. Pat Toomey's actually a beekeeper, so we talked a lot about that. Not with Pat Toomey, I want to make that clear. We were meeting with his 25-year-old staffers that were assigned to researching agriculture and science. So Yeah, that's the only senator. Oh, I saw Dianne Feinstein once, but she was way too busy to meet. So, and this was really great practice for me to think about. It made me think a lot about how there's this idea in science that I think has been prevalent for quite a few decades, maybe for more than that, that science should be apolitical. It doesn't have a political agenda. And I agree that that is true, but at the same time, all major scientific discoveries in the United States, at least, are funded by national agencies. And so there's the National Science Foundation, there's the United States Department of Agriculture, which funded my research. The Department of Defense actually funds a lot of research on insects. Who else? The NIH, duh. I can't believe I forgot the National Institute of Health. Insect-borne diseases are a huge problem. Malaria kills millions and millions of people every year. So, if we expect senators and congressmen to be funding our research and voting on bills that provide us funding for our research, then we should be involved in the political process. So it was really, really fun to do this. I got to pretend. We went into the House of Representatives and I saw this podium and I was like, take pictures of me, pretend I'm in Congress. So that was very exciting. This also is when I got involved with March for Science. So in 2017, a nationwide movement started to March for Science. And this kind of, I think, created a real culture shift more nationally and even globally within the scientific community that we shouldn't be removed from the political process, especially if they're the ones giving us money to do our research. So I helped co-organize the March for Science in Riverside in California because that's where I lived, and I gave a speech there. I think we were expecting like 200 people to show up, and we had well over 2,000. So my megaphone I gave my speech through was not sufficient. So I helped organize this, and then I got invited to go to the Science Summit, which was a conference of March for Science satellite organizers, where we talked about what the next steps might be for March for Science. And there were all these really cool talks. I actually went to this like 2 months before I moved here. And these are all the other entomologists that went with me. There were really cool talks on lots of different things. I went to this thing to like learn how to do improv comedy about science. I wasn't very good at it, but it was a fun workshop. And then the thing that interests me the most, there were lots of talks about how to interface with religious communities about science. And so there were pastors and priests that gave talks about how to incorporate education, science education, in with religious communities. So that was really fun. And then, and I did a little, so while I was a postdoc, I did do some of my traditional stuff where I did outreach with kids. I got interviewed for the Sacramento Bee for an article on my research, and we went out into the field. That's where that picture came from on the first slide. I helped out at a pollinator festival and met this cute little pony. I gave a talk in the Sierra Nevada about my research, and then I was invited a few months later to be the commencement speaker at a high school graduation, which was very fun. And that's my favorite. That's a drawing of me that a kindergartner did after I went to their school. Their teacher gave them an assignment. Their teacher was my roller derby friend, and she knew I would love it. So she asked all her students to draw pictures of me. And that is by far my favorite and most accurate drawing of me. I look a little bit like Danny DeVito in It's Always Sunny, but... And then, something else really cool happened in my postdoc that kind of helped me reach a national stage with science outreach, and that was, I went on an Arctic expedition to the Arctic Circle with a research team. This is our research team. And the New York Times came with us. smelling bad, getting bitten by mosquitoes. And they came with us because we were on the search for this very rare bumblebee named Bombus polaris. It is the only bee that lives north of the Arctic Circle. This is summertime in the Arctic Circle. It only lasts about 8 weeks, and it's daylight 24/7. And so Bombus polaris it spends 9 months of its life hibernating underground as a queen, and then it has 3 months to come out and start a new colony and rear new queens for the next season. You see the little things flying around in the air in that picture? Those are mosquitoes. Mosquitoes are so dense at this time of year that you have to wear a shield, like a net over your face, or you'll just eat them and they'll crawl in your eyes. It's disgusting. But it was really fun. This is Jim Gorman. He's the New York Times reporter that came with us. And this is Katie Orlinsky. She's the photographer that came. And we did not find Bombus polaris until the last day that they were there. And we were so stressed out. We're like, oh my God, the New York Times spent all this money to come and see us, and we have not found this bee. What are we going to do? And then we finally got to a research station called Tulik. It's a pretty famous Arctic research station. And we found it in some dead bee samples that a bird person somebody had been misnetting for birds, and they accidentally caught a bunch of bumblebees. We were talking to them over dinner, and they were like, oh, I got a bunch of dead bees. Do you want them? And I was like, yes, please, give me your dead bees. And then as I was sorting through the samples, because I was the only person on the trip who really knew how to identify them, so it was all up to me to find Bombus polaris, I found it in the dead bee samples, and it was like, and this was on 4th of July, so it was like, we were all like, after we found Bombus polaris, we were like, USA! USA! So, that was a good time. And then, like a year later, National Geographic posted this picture of me on Instagram, and it got over 100,000 likes, and most of the comments were about how I look like Bubbles from Trailer Park Boys. But that's okay, I like those glasses, I think I look cool. So, this is my national spotlight stage. Now that brings us to here, where I always wanted to be. So, I started at a small liberal arts college, and that early experience at Mount St. Joseph University, and then my experience with the Creation Museum, made me decide I wanted to be an educator. And so, above all else, I've always wanted to educate people about science in the natural world. And I wanted to go back to a small liberal arts college because that's where I found my passion. And so I was like, I want to go there and I want to do this thing. I can barely breathe. I want to go to a small liberal arts college and do the same thing for somebody else. So this is how my outreach looks these days. I have 2 nieces that I spend a lot of time with teaching about bugs. That's Ellie and that's Mila. They came to visit me when I was in California and be scientists for the day. In COVID times, they've gotten really, really bored doing online school. So during one of my ecology labs, I just put them on FaceTime and I walked them around the nature reserve while we were doing my lab. And then their mom got home and they were like, we hung out with cool high schoolers all day. And her mom was like, no, those were college students, sweetheart. And you guys are how I do outreach now. It's the way I always wanted to. That's my ecology class, my evolution class, an old picture of my research lab. We gotta take a new one, COVID safe picture. And then I also do outreach in a new way too that I figured out while I was bored and trapped in my house all summer. Because all my summer research plans got canceled, so I was like, I don't know what to do. So I made a coloring book. You can buy it on about bees, so it works. And that's all I got. I hope that was entertaining.
Are there any questions for Dr. Dwyer?